Welcome to another episode of Exquisite Seafood with Chef Justin Fields, and today's episode is all about calamari. We're going to be talking about this classic kind of appetizer that you see everywhere. I don't think there's not one restaurant in this nation that doesn't have a calamari dish, but we're going to talk about, of course, doing a different spin on it, okay? One style, we're going to combine probably three different, on-trend things out there. One being Brussels sprouts, two being cauliflower, and then three being calamari. You can get fried cauliflower and Brussels sprouts nowadays as an appetizer. We're gonna combine all three of those ingredients into one dish and really show you how to style that out. More so kind of like, American, Southern, honey, buttermilk, a lot of things going on. But the other style we're gonna do is a little bit of an Asian spin. We're gonna use some shishito peppers, some rice flour, some sesame seeds, and give you a very nice approach to calamari. So please stay tuned and take some notes. All right, so calamari, right? Got some beautiful calamari in. You can get calamari in a lot of different ways. You can find it whole, where you have, the tentacles and the tube connected. You kind of have some cartilage inside there, sometimes a little beak, which is what they eat with, is inside those bad boys. But what I have here are cleaned tentacles and tubes, right? And when I say tubes versus tentacles, tubes being the body, this is typically what you see as rings. We're gonna cut these down. And then your tentacles being the head, right? So these longer tentacles is what they actually eat with. They're actually out there catching little different fish and algae and different things of that nature. And in this size, the smaller tentacles is kind of how they're bringing everything to their mouths, right? So you can cut these down, you can keep them long. I kind of like to keep them long because it adds a lot of different textures to the party. But we're just gonna talk about what you do with these bad boys right here. We're gonna keep our tentacles whole, but we're gonna cut these into rings. So I'm just gonna transfer all my stuff over. Let me slide these out of the way right here. Got a few different batters here on how to bread calamari. And we're gonna talk about how we cut these tubes down. So I have a couple knives over here. And I'm just gonna take one of these sharp knives and start to cut this calamari up. So I have my tubes. I don't like it to be too thin, right? I like about, let's say, 1/2 to 3/4 of an inch thick, right? That's kind of where we're going for. Sorry about that, had a little bit of that accordion action going there, but this is what you're going for. About a ring about that size, about that thick, right? Once you have your actual hero or your example of how it should look, you can go through and kind of blast these out. So I'm gonna take some time, cut up my calamari, and then we're gonna talk about the different breadings or dredges that we have for the different styles today. Okay, so we have our calamari all cut up. We have it combined with our tentacles. Now let's talk about the component of our first approach to calamari. So we talked about the three components: Brussels sprouts, cauliflower, and calamari. So, fried Brussels sprouts are everywhere right now. You can find them spicy, sweet, a bunch of different kind of mix-ins with them. A lot of people are doing the same thing with cauliflower. They're battering them, frying them, doing kung pao, a lot of different things. So my thought was, hey, all three of these are really favorite fried appetizer for a lot of people out there. Why don't we combine them and make them something really cool? So that's what we're gonna do. So I'm just gonna chop up my cauliflower and my Brussels sprouts, right? So these are pretty small Brussels. I'm just gonna take my nubs, my ends off, and just cut them in half, just like that. You know what? Actually, I'm gonna cut them in quarters because I don't wanna overcook my calamari, right? So if I cut those in half, it'll take a little bit longer to fry. I only want my calamari to be down maybe 2 minutes tops. If you're looking for super crispy, minute and a half, you should be good to go because these are really tender, small calamari. So I'm gonna throw a few of those in there, get some quarters for that quick cook, and then I'm gonna take these florets of my cauliflower and just cut those down to a size that will be sufficient to fry without overcooking as well. So our cauliflower florets, I'm just gonna take those and just cut them down into, smaller, manageable pieces. What I'm looking for is for that caramelization to happen, right? Once cauliflower starts to caramelize, the flavors develop a little bit differently. You start to bring out a lot of those, caramelized notes. And the same with the Brussels sprouts. You know, people love fried Brussels sprouts because as you fry them, the flavor profile changes completely. If you're going with like a steamed Brussels sprouts, you know, Brussels sprouts back in the day, you get them steamed, they were mushy, people really didn't like them. But once they started frying them, all of a sudden, Brussels sprouts are the greatest thing in the world, right? So just a very interesting thing right there. I'm gonna add a little bit of buttermilk to this because we're gonna do a buttermilk soak that we season, and then we're gonna go into masa, which is a corn flour, basically what you make tortillas out of. So we're gonna utilize masa as our dredger, buttermilk as our kind of marinade for our calamari and Brussels sprouts and cauliflower. So just a little bit of buttermilk right there. Before I add my calamari to that, I'm just gonna season it with salt and pepper. You know, you could season with a lot of different things. I'm just going very simply with salt and pepper here. And then topically when we come out, just because it allows everything to shine a lot better. Like all those flavors come out, you're not masking the flavor of the calamari, Brussels sprouts, or anything else. We will also be going over the top or tossing, right? Anytime you get a Brussels sprouts appetizer, 9 out of 10 times you're tossing that in some type of acidic vinaigrette, something that has a lot of flavor to it. So we are going to do an apple cider vinaigrette with some honey and some grain mustard that we're gonna toss everything with, and then over the top do a little bit of a buttermilk drizzle. All right, so that is inside. I'm gonna add a nice handful or a couple of handfuls of this calamari. These are pretty small, so in order to get a nice big portion or a nice pile, you just wanna make sure you share the love and do a little bit there. So everything in that bowl, and we're just gonna let that sit with that buttermilk just for a second, all right? This is what's gonna go into our masa or corn flour. So we talked about this vinaigrette that will be going over the top once it's fried, right? Or kind of tossed with everything once it's fried. So let's quickly do that. What I have here is apple cider vinegar, right? Fair amount of that into our bowl, right? It's a vinaigrette. So we're going, we're starting with that acid. We're gonna balance out with the sweetness from honey. So I got about, let's say, 1/3 of a cup of apple cider vinegar, going with about 1.5 tablespoons to 2 tablespoons of honey. I'm gonna be putting about a teaspoon or so of this grain mustard, right? I really like the idea of that mustard, the grains kind of popping in there, gives you texture. A little bit of black pepper, touch of salt. And then we have our oil here that we're gonna slowly add to this as we mix it up. I have my whisk handy. I like to put a towel down just so my bowl doesn't go crazy on me. And we're just gonna work that together. So, very important piece of these fried appetizers, when you pair them with acid, it really cuts everything, makes everything eat a lot lighter. We are frying this entire deal, but adding a little bit of that oil to that allows you to get that emulsification. Nice and slow. So you do have that vinaigrette kind of look to everything. I can smell the apple already. Here's another thing is that, apples, Brussels sprouts, cauliflower, all these things kind of pair well together. And to get that textural note from the calamari as well will be a nice combination. Honey vinaigrette, apple cider, whole grain mustard, really tasty. Let's put that to the side. And then what did we mention about this buttermilk drizzle, right? So we have the buttermilk here, but I want to do a buttermilk drizzle that will go over everything. So we're gonna toss all the ingredients once fried, plate them, and then over the top do this buttermilk drizzle. What I'm gonna do for that is use some sour cream, right? Buttermilk is very thin, right? So using sour cream, which has a very similar note, thick, tangy, we're gonna add some of that into our bowl. Let's go with about 3 tablespoons or so. Then we have our buttermilk, right? Tangy action. Let's go with about 2 tablespoons of that right there. Black pepper, salt again. And then what I'm gonna do here, just to mix it up a little bit, we're gonna put a little bit of chopped cilantro into this as well. So you'll get that speckle coming from the cilantro inside of your crema or cream that will go over the top, right? We did say that this is going in the squeeze bottle, so I want to make sure that that chop is fine enough so it won't jam up my squeeze bottle and I have these big chunks that won't allow it to flow through the actual tip. So we're just essentially setting the stage for frying off our calamari. The next step was to make our batter, right? So one of the things that I really love to do is explore different batters and different breaders and different things. There's a ton of different starches out there. You know, you don't have to only use flour to bread and fry things, right? We are using Masa today for one style, but then we are doing, for another style, we are doing rice flour, beer, and then a little bit of sesame seed for our other style, right? So just a little note there on what we'll be doing next. But let me just get this together. We'll get this into a squeeze bottle, and then we will transfer over to the range to fry this calamari off. Okay, so we have our calamari, Brussels sprouts, and cauliflower in our buttermilk. They've been sitting for a second. We've lightly seasoned our masa or corn flour with our salt and pepper. So let's kind of go into our fry and talk about how we do this. So I have a couple spiders here to just drain away this buttermilk. Right, so excess away, and then we're going directly in. Right, we're gonna do that a couple times. Get it all out, and make sure that we transfer all. I'm gonna use my hands to kind of just make sure that everything is totally coated. And then from there, I'll be using my other spider in the back just to make sure that we get rid of the excess coating on this stuff. So let's start to get rid of our excess. Pop that over, shake that off, and I'm just adding this to my fry. You should see a nice even fry when you add that in. Get rid of my excess there. As I'm adding that in, I might heighten up my oil temp just to make sure like I'm loading it up pretty hard. So I just want to make sure that I'm getting a nice even fry inside that oil. Looks like we're all out. All right. So at this point, we're just allowing this to cook and do its thing. Just watching it, making sure our color's correct, making sure that we don't overcook our different ingredients that we have in there. Give it a little bit of a toss, right? Don't move it too much. We just want to make sure it doesn't stick together, but you're not trying to knock all that beautiful coating off either, okay? So there's no egg in here, right? We're using the residual liquid from the calamari plus that buttermilk to really style it out and give you a nice coating on the outside with that masa background flavor as well. So we already have our buttermilk to the side. We have our vinaigrette to the side as well. We're gonna fry these off, get those done, and then transfer into our other style, and then we'll plate both of them together. All right, so our calamari is looking good. I'm gonna start pulling this out and allowing it to drain. All right, so we have one style cooked, not plated yet. We're gonna go into the other style and just kind of show you the differences between the two. So on this style, we are gonna be using shishito peppers along with calamari. So another approach where this famous or highly loved appetizer gets combined with calamari. Shishito peppers, I've seen them fried, grilled, charred, a lot of different ways. Beautiful green pepper, a little sweet, has a little spice depending on it's hit or miss. Sometimes they get a little spicy, sometimes not, but it's a great little bar snack to where you can just a couple bites and done. We're gonna slice these down into the same style or size that the calamari slice, but let's talk about the dredge or how we're gonna coat this thing. So calamari and shishitos are gonna go into cornstarch straight up, but then we have a combination of rice flour and sesame seeds, and we're gonna make a beer batter. So I'm using Blue Moon. And the reason I chose Blue Moon is because it has that citrus kind of background flavor to it, which makes it awesome for an approach like this. So again, I'm gonna put my towel down. I have my sesame seeds and my rice flour in here. This is not sweet rice flour. This is regular just white rice flour, unsweetened, not your mochiko style. All right, so slowly adding my beer to this. And I'm looking to get that batter consistency is what I'm looking for. Right, so essentially what's gonna happen is we're gonna add our ingredients to the cornstarch, and then from there, once it's coated, it'll go into this batter, which will then go into the fryer. All right, so I'm just looking for that almost like a beer batter consistency, not too thick, not too thin, almost there, right? And the magic of rice flour, is gluten-free, okay? So for those gluten-free people out there that, you know, either you need it because of your health or you're just trying to avoid some of those extra carbs, it's a great way to approach it is to use rice flour, right? So there it is. This is our batter that our cornstarch dredged food or ingredients will go into. Let's put that to the side. Give my whisk a little rinse here, right? So we said Asian style on this as well. So what I will be doing is a play on like a spicy aioli or like a sriracha aioli. So sriracha now makes this yellow sriracha, right? And it's essentially very similar, except they're using yellow chilies instead of red. These chilies give it a little bit more of a floral kind of flavor, a little bit more almost citrus kind of flavor to it. So we're gonna combine that with a little bit of mayo as well. Right, so just plain mayonnaise. We have this yellow sriracha, right? And we wanna add a fair amount of that so we color it out. But then also a touch, not too much, of sesame oil. All right, this is spicy sesame oil, so we're going for this kick right now, right? Sesame oil can be overpowering, so this is about all that we're gonna be using. Right, I'm gonna give that a little bit of a swirl. My sriracha has a fair amount of salt in it already. My sesame oil has a very strong flavor as well, so I'm not gonna season this at all, but we're just gonna put our sauce to the side after we have that done. And then we're gonna go into making our calamari. So beer is done, get that out of here. We have our sauce right here to the side. Let's get these shishitos cut up. So shishito peppers, as we talked about a little bit earlier, you're just gonna take them and make similar cuts to them as we did to our calamari. So looking at about no more than ½ an inch long. Little button there, let's get that out of there. Right, but this is going into the same fry as our calamari. Very similar to what we did with the Brussels sprouts and cauliflower. We're gonna be adding it to the same dredge and then frying everything together for a very awesome effect. So we have our shishito peppers, we have our calamari. What I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna kind of combine both of those right here. Get all my seeds, I don't wanna lose those. And then mix everything together in our bowl, and then all goes into our cornstarch. Let me add this to the cornstarch. We're gonna bring this batter over to the fryer and then fry these off as well. Okay, so we have our second style ready to go in the fryer. We have our shishitos and calamari that have been dredged in cornstarch, and we have our batter made out of our rice flour and sesame seeds with a little bit of beer. All right, so I'm gonna slowly have a gloved hand just because, you know, as you're getting into this batter, things can get a little bit sticky. So I'm just gonna add my calamari and shishitos and just start fishing those out into the fryer. All right, so adding that to my batter. I've already shaken away my excess cornstarch here so I don't bog down our batter, but have my oil not too hot, it's not smoking, but it is hot and ready to go. So adding everything to my batter, and then I'm gonna slowly just kind of drop these pieces into the fryer. I love using my hands for this just because I have more control. If you were to drop this in just in one big bunch, it would just fry up as one entire, you know, huge thing of like fried batter, and you don't want that. You want the individual pieces of your calamari, your shishito peppers, your everything. Texture's going on, getting a nice fry, right? So I'm moving quickly, so I try to get it in one batch, and not necessarily, hey, I have one batch and then my second batch, but it's all about getting that beautiful fry, almost like a tempura-esque type of fry on this. So let me just finish adding this in, and we're gonna let this fry off, cook to a golden brown. Using the glove just makes for an easy transition. And then after that fries for a second, I'm just gonna use my my spider back here just to break up the pieces and make sure that we do have the individualized pieces as we talked about. All right, let's let those do their thing, and then we're going to slide over to plating. Okay, at this point, our calamari looks done. We're going to start transferring it from our oil to drain. All right, so we have both our styles of calamari. Over here, we have our mixture of Brussels sprouts, calamari, and cauliflower. Over here, we have our shishitos and calamari. We're gonna start here, right? Both of these I've already lightly seasoned, coming out of the fryer with salt and pepper. So I'll give those a little bit of a toss on both sides. Make sure they're completely seasoned. But first and foremost, I just want you to look at the difference in the coat on these, right? You have more of that batter type over here with the sesame seeds. On this left side, you have, you know, your corn flour, right, without the batter. Just two different styles, both very crispy, crunchy, but just a little bit different. So I just wanted to kind of talk through that really quickly. But the first thing we're gonna do is toss this with our vinaigrette that we made, right? So we did that honey vinaigrette earlier. These are fresh out of the fryer, lightly tossed. And I'm just gonna put about 3 fluid ounces of that vinaigrette in there, and we're just gonna toss everything together, just like that. All right, we're getting everything coated. Nice whole mustard in there, whole grain mustard, honey, vinegar. So you got a nice combination of sweetness and, you know, spice with the mustard seeds in there. And then we're just gonna go centralized in this bowl and just try to build some nice height is what we're trying to do, right? So we also have that buttermilk drizzle that will go over everything. But we're just filling this nice bowl up with that beautiful calamari that we just fried in that masa, right? So calamari is down, just like that. And then we have our drizzle that we made earlier with our buttermilk. And we're just gonna have that go right over the top, as such, right? So you get the brightness from the buttermilk, right? You get the brightness from the vinaigrette, but then you have this hearty fried Brussels sprouts, calamari, and cauliflower together. It's a really great approach on this side. Kind of simple. Let's talk about what we're doing on this side over here, all right? So we talked about the salt and pepper added in there. We're gonna add a little bit of cilantro to that and toss that along with it. So this is a little bit drier. We have our sauce already to the side, our kind of yellow sriracha aioli over there as a dipping sauce, but we just want to add this fresh finish to this style, right? Shishitos, sesame seeds, and then just a little bit of this fresh cilantro that helps to coat all of the ingredients in the bowl, right? So just give that a light toss as well. And then we're going for that same approach, right? So we're going right in the middle, and we're looking to get some beautiful height on this. You know, one thing that we do not have in play here is acid inside of the calamari itself. So we've just nicely placed a little lemon wedge to the side, and you can just lightly just kind of squeeze that over your tossed calamari, dip it into your spicy aioli over there, and then you have all the components of your palate being satisfied. All right, you got some heat, you got the acid, all those different things. I see those sesame seeds peeking through. I kind of like the idea of the sesame seeds being a part of the actual batter, right? So it's our second style right there. Let's wipe us down, make sure that we're looking good here. And then we're just gonna end with this beautiful lemon wedge right to the side. Spicy aioli up front. Man, look at these beautiful calamari preparations. We have 2 different styles. Right over here we have our masa fried, and then over here we have our rice flour batter fried. And you know, two obviously different approaches, but you know, I highly suggest you get out there, try some different starches. There's potato starch, corn starch. I use masa corn flour today. You use rice flour. They all fry up differently. They all give you different levels of crispness. But reach out if you have any questions. Chef J Fields TV on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. You can reach me at Gmail, Chef J Fields TV as well. But if you have any questions, please shoot. You might mess up, but never stop cooking. Never ever. Chef J Fields, and I'm out. Cheers.